Captain Lee Minho sat in his command chair on the bridge of the human ship UES Defiance. His hands gripped the armrests as he watched the news reports flowing across the main screen. The latest attack had happened just 6 hours ago. Another human colony ship destroyed by alien weapons, 300,000 people dead in the blink of an eye. The ship that was destroyed was called New Hope. It carried families who were traveling to start a new life on the frontier world of Kepler-7 children. Played in the quarters just minutes before the Veltan Empire warships opened fire, the aliens did not send any warning. They did not ask for surrender, they simply fired their massive weapons and turned the colony ship into burning metal and dust park. Ji-won turned from her communications station. Her eyes were red with tears. Her voice shook as she spoke to Captain Minho. "Sir, my sister June was on that ship. She was taking her 2 children to the new colony. Her husband got a job as a teacher there. The kids were so excited to see their new home." Minho closed his eyes for a moment. He had served in the human fleet for 20 years. He had seen too many attacks like this. The aliens of the galaxy seemed to think that humans were weak because they always tried to solve problems with words instead of weapons. They thought human mercy was the same thing as human weakness. They were very wrong about that. The bridge crew watched the news reports in angry silence. The reporter was a human woman standing in front of the Galactic Council building on the planet Centros Prime. She explained that the Veltan Empire claimed they were expanding their territory. The human colony ship was in their way, so they destroyed it. The Galactic Council had already issued a statement. They called the attack regrettable but understandable given the territorial dispute. Regrettable, Lieutenant Commander Song Hyunwoo spat the word like it tasted bad. 300,000 people are dead and they call it regrettable. My brother was on that ship too. He was a doctor going to help set up the new medical center. The news reporter continued with more bad news. Over the past 50 years, similar attacks had happened dozens of times. The Zephyrian Republic had poisoned human farming worlds, killing millions through starvation. The Makari Empire regularly captured human ships and sold the people as slaves. The Granaki species used human prisoners for medical experiments. The Keth Dominion had bombed human refugee camps. Every single time the Galactic Council had found excuses for the alien attackers. They said humans were expanding too fast into space. They said human colonies were built in contested areas. They said humans should have asked permission before settling on empty worlds. But when aliens attacked each other, the Council always demanded immediate punishment. Captain Minho had seen the pattern his whole career. Humans were expected to be perfect. They had to follow every rule and treaty. They had to be polite and diplomatic even when aliens murdered their families, but aliens could break any law and face no real punishment. The galaxy saw human restraint as proof that humans were naturally weak. The communications officer, Choi Seojun, received an urgent message from Earth Command. He played it on the main speakers. Admiral Kim Tae-eun appeared on the screen. His face looked older than his 60 years. The stress of watching human colonies get attacked had taken its toll on all the senior commanders, all fleet commanders. This is Admiral Kim Tae-eun speaking. I have just finished meeting with President Moon Jae-in and the Earth Defense Council. We have reviewed the attack on New Hope and all the previous attacks on human settlements over the past 5 decades. The Admiral paused and looked directly into the camera. His next words would change everything. The Earth government has made a decision. We have tried diplomacy for 50 years. We have followed every galactic law and treaty. We have shown mercy to species that have shown us none. Our patience has limits, and those limits have been reached. Captain Minho felt his heart start beating faster. He had been waiting for this moment for years, the moment when humanity would finally stop being the galaxy's victim, the moment when the other species would learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped holding back operation. Clean slate is now authorized, the Admiral continued. All human fleets are released from defensive positions. Only rules of engagement are now unrestricted. You are authorized to use any means necessary to protect human lives and human interests. Show the galaxy what happens when they mistake our mercy for weakness. The bridge of the Defiance went completely silent. Everyone understood what those words meant. For 50 years, human military commanders had been forced to fight with one hand tied behind their backs. They had to be careful not to hurt too many aliens. They had to avoid damaging alien cities or infrastructure. They had to show restraint even when aliens showed them none. But now the restrictions were lifted. Now human commanders could fight the way they had been trained to fight, the way their ancestors had fought in the great wars on Earth. The aliens had no idea what they had awakened. Park Ji-won wiped the tears from her eyes and turned back to her station. Sir, I am receiving messages from human fleets throughout the galaxy. They are all requesting permission to begin immediate operations against hostile alien forces. Lieutenant Commander Song Hyun-woo checked his tactical displays. Sir, our weapon systems are fully operational. All stealth systems are online. We have been tracking Velton Empire ship movements for the past 3 months. We know exactly where their main fleet is located. Captain Minho stood up from his command chair. For the first time in months, he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had finally been given permission to hunt. Set course for the Velton home system. He ordered maximum stealth approach. We are going to show them what happens when you kill human children. The crew of the Defiance worked with quiet efficiency as they prepared for battle. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. They knew that other human ships throughout the galaxy were making similar preparations. The aliens had spent decades pushing humanity further and further. They had finally pushed too far. Chief Engineer Yoon Dae-ho reported from the engine room. Captain, all systems are running at peak efficiency. We can maintain maximum stealth for 72 hours. We will be completely invisible until we choose to attack. Weapons Officer Kang Min-ji ran final checks on the ship armament. All weapons are charged and ready, sir. We have enough firepower to take out 3 Velton cruisers. The new quantum torpedoes have never been used in actual combat. The aliens have no defense against them. As the Defiance moved toward enemy territory, Captain Minho thought about all the human families that had been destroyed by alien attacks. He thought about the children who would never grow up, the dreams that would never be fulfilled, the futures that had been stolen. The galaxy had taught humanity a hard lesson about the true nature of interstellar politics. Now it was time for humanity to teach the galaxy a lesson in return. The aliens were about to discover that human restraint had been a choice, not a necessity. They were about to learn that when humans finally stopped being patient, the results would be more terrible than anything they could imagine. The age of human victimhood was ending. The age of human vengeance was about to begin. Dr. Song Hae-jin worked in the deepest levels of the asteroid research station called Prometheus. Her laboratory was hidden so far inside the rock that no alien scanner could detect it. She had been working here for 15 years developing weapons that the galaxy had never seen. The official report said she was studying peaceful mining techniques, but that was a lie. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this day since the first alien attack 20 years ago. While human diplomats spoke of peace in the Galactic Council, human scientists and engineers were creating the tools of war. They knew that someday words would not be enough. They knew that someday they would need to fight. Hae-jin looked at her latest creation on the laboratory table. The quantum disruptor looked like a simple metal cylinder, but it could disable an entire alien battleship without killing anyone inside. Human weapons were designed to be precise. They could destroy military targets while leaving civilians unharmed. This was something aliens had never learned to do. Her assistant Dr. Park Min-jae ran the final tests on the new stealth technology. The results were perfect. Human ships could now become completely invisible to alien sensors. They could move through alien space without being detected. They could strike without warning and disappear before the enemy could respond. In another part of the station, Colonel Bae Jung-woo reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. For decades, human agents had been living among alien populations. They worked as translators, traders, and even servants. The aliens thought these humans were harmless refugees seeking new homes. They never suspected that every human in alien space was actually a trained intelligence operative. The reports painted a complete picture of alien military capabilities. Every major alien fleet base was mapped down to the smallest detail. Every alien commander had been studied, and their weaknesses identified. Every alien government had been infiltrated by human agents who reported back to Earth Command. Colonel Bae smiled as he read the latest report from the Velton Empire. The aliens who had just destroyed the colony ship New Hope had no idea that their most trusted human translator was actually a military intelligence officer. She had been feeding information to Earth for 5 years. Her reports included complete blueprints of Velton military installations and the personal schedules of their top commanders. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Seojun coordinated with resistance cells throughout occupied human space. These were not random groups of angry civilians. They were highly trained military units that had been placed in position years ago. They had weapons hidden in secret locations. They had detailed plans for attacking alien infrastructure. They had been waiting patiently for the order to begin operations. The resistance cell on Mokari Prime was led by Captain Yoon Dae-ho. He had been living there for 8 years pretending to be a simple factory worker. The Mokari Empire used human slaves to build their war machines. They thought humans were too weak and stupid to organize any real resistance. They were about to learn how wrong they were on the mining world of KEF-7. Major Lim Jun-yuk had spent 6 years building his cover identity as a mining supervisor. The KEF Dominion forced human prisoners to work in dangerous mines. Many humans died from the toxic conditions, but the aliens did not care. Major Lim had been documenting every crime while secretly training the human workers for the coming rebellion. The preparation was not just on alien worlds. Human military forces throughout the galaxy were quietly moving into position. Admiral Co. Minna commanded the Third Fleet, which had been conducting routine patrol missions near the Zephyrian border for 3 months. Her ships had been mapping Zephyrian defensive positions while appearing to be on peaceful missions. Her fleet included the newest human warships that had never been seen in combat. The aliens thought they knew what human military technology looked like. They had only seen the older ships that humans used for defensive missions. They had no idea that humanity had been building a completely new generation of warships in secret. Captain Kong Minji commanded one of these new ships, the UES Retribution. It was twice as fast as any known alien vessel and carried weapons that could punch through any alien shield system. The ship looked smaller than traditional human designs, but that was because it was built for speed and stealth rather than long voyages. The communication networks buzzed with coded messages between human commanders. Major General Han Soo-yang coordinated the overall operation from her command center on Luna Base. The plan was incredibly complex, involving simultaneous attacks across 17 different star systems, but every detail had been rehearsed dozens of times. Intelligence reports confirmed that the aliens had no idea what was coming. The Galactic Council was actually planning to issue another statement, condemning the attack on New Hope, but praising the Veltan Empire for their restraint in not attacking more human ships. They thought this would calm the situation and return everything to normal. The alien military commanders were not even on high alert. The Veltan Empire had celebrated their easy victory over the human colony ship their commanders were attending victory parades instead of preparing their defenses. The Mokari Empire was planning to capture more human civilians to sell as slaves. The Granaki species was expanding their biological research programs using human test subjects. Dr. Song Haijin received the final authorization codes from Earth Command. The new weapons were approved for combat use. The quantum disruptors could be deployed immediately. The stealth systems were fully operational. The human fleet was ready to show the galaxy what they had been building in secret. Colonel Bei Jungwoo sent the activation signal to all human agents throughout alien space. The message was simple and coded, but every human operative understood its meaning. The time for hiding was over. The time for action had begun. Operation Clean Slate was moving to the next phase. The resistance cells began their final preparations. Captain Yoon Dae-ho gathered his team on Mokari Prime. They had identified 12 critical targets, including the main slave processing center and the planetary defense headquarters. Major Lim Jun-yuk prepared his miners on KEF-7. They would strike at the mining operation control centers and free thousands of human prisoners. Admiral Sao Minna gave her final briefing to the Third Fleet commanders. The attack would begin in exactly 48 hours. Every human ship would strike at the same moment across the galaxy. The aliens would face a coordinated assault unlike anything they had ever experienced. The genius of the plan was its timing. The aliens expected humans to respond slowly through diplomatic channels. They expected months of debate and negotiation before any military action. Instead, they would face immediate, overwhelming force striking. At their most vulnerable points, Captain Kang Mingji reviewed the target list for her ship. The UES Retribution would attack the main Zephyrian naval base, while 3 other human ships struck at their communication centers. The aliens would be blind and helpless before they understood what was happening to them. As the countdown continued, human forces across the galaxy made their final preparations. Weapons were checked and rechecked, stealth systems were activated, intelligence reports were updated with real-time information. The aliens had taught humanity many lessons about warfare over the past 50 years. Now it was time for the final exam. The galaxy was about to discover that human patience was not the same thing as human weakness. Human mercy was not the same thing as human inability to fight. When humans finally stopped being diplomatic and started being military, the results would reshape the balance of power forever. In less than 2 days, every alien species that had attacked humanity would face the consequences of their actions. They would learn that pushing humans too far was the most dangerous mistake they could ever make. The attacks began at exactly 8 in the morning Galactic Standard Time. Commander Kang Minji led her assault team through the corridors of the Velton military headquarters. The same aliens who had destroyed the colony ship New Hope were now running in panic as human soldiers moved through their most secure facility. The Velton defense systems had been designed to stop large-scale invasions with thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. They were not designed to stop small teams of humans who could appear anywhere without warning. The quantum stealth technology made human soldiers completely invisible until they chose to attack. Commander Kong moved like a ghost through the enemy base. Her team of 12 soldiers had already disabled the main power systems and the communication arrays. The Velton commanders could not call for help or coordinate their defense. They were trapped in their own headquarters while humans systematically took control of every system. The Velton general Vex Morvac tried to activate the emergency lockdown protocols, but the human hackers had already taken control of the computer systems. Every door he tried to lock would open. Every weapon he tried to activate would shut down. The humans had been studying Velton technology for years, and they knew exactly how to turn it against them. In the main command center, 6 Velton officers tried to send a distress signal to their fleet, but Lieutenant Park Juwon had already replaced their communication system with a human device. Instead of calling for help, their message was broadcast to every human ship in the area. The Velton distress call became a victory announcement for humanity. The attack took exactly 3 hours from start to finish. The Velton military headquarters was completely captured without killing a single alien civilian. The human soldiers had used non-lethal weapons that disabled their enemies without permanent harm. This was something the aliens had never done when they attacked human targets. Sergeant Major Lim Jin-yuk led a different kind of mission on the slave world of Gornaki 4. This was where the aliens had been taking captured humans for medical experiments and forced labor. The facility held over 50,000 human prisoners, including many children who had been taken from destroyed colony ships. The Gornaki guards had never seen an attack like this. Human soldiers seemed to appear from thin air, using stealth technology that made them completely invisible. The aliens fired their weapons at empty air while human soldiers moved past them. Like shadows, the rescue operation began before the guards even realized they were under attack. The human prisoners could not believe what they were seeing. Men and women in human military uniforms were cutting through the prison barriers with advanced tools. The soldiers moved with perfect discipline and coordination. They knew exactly where every prisoner was located and exactly how to free them safely. Young Su-min had been a prisoner for 2 years after her family transport was captured by Gornaki raiders. She was only 14 years old when they took her. Now she watched in amazement as human soldiers freed her from the medical laboratory where aliens had been experimenting on her. The soldier who freed her was Captain Yoon Dae-ho. He had been living undercover on this world for 6 years, pretending to be a maintenance worker. All that time he had been mapping the prison facilities and planning this rescue operation. He knew every corridor, every guard post, and every security system. Captain Yoon smiled at the young girl as he cut through her restraints. "You are safe now, Su-min. Your parents are alive and looking for you. We are taking you home." The girl started crying, but they were tears of joy. For the first time in 2 years, she had hoped the rescue operation freed thousands of humans while simultaneously destroying the alien slave processing infrastructure. The freed prisoners were not just rescued, they were armed and trained to help with their own liberation. Many of them chose to join the human Military forces to help free other prisoners. The galaxy communication networks buzzed with panic as alien species realized their most secure installations were under coordinated attack. The humans they had dismissed as weak were demonstrating military precision that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral C.C.O. Mina coordinated the space battles. From her flagship, the UES Vengeance, the human fleet had appeared throughout alien space without warning using stealth technology that made them invisible until they chose to attack. The aliens had no time to prepare defenses or call for reinforcements. The Battle of Zephyrian Gate lasted only 4 hours. The Zephyrian Republic had built a massive space fortress to control the main trade route through their territory. They thought it was impregnable with shields that could stop any known weapon and enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. They were wrong. The human quantum disruptors passed through their shields like they did not exist. The weapons disabled the fortress systems without harming the crew inside within minutes. The most powerful Zephyrian military installation was helpless and underhuman. Control Captain Lee Minho commanded the attack on the Mokari slave ships. The Mokari Empire had been capturing human civilians and selling them in alien slave markets for over 20 years. They operated a fleet of specialized ships designed to hunt down and capture human transports. The Mokari slavers had never faced human warships designed for combat. Their ships were built for capturing helpless civilians, not fighting trained soldiers. The battle was completely one-sided. Human ships moved too fast for Mokari weapons to target, and human weapons cut through Mokari shields like paper. The most important part of the battle was not destroying the enemy ships, but rescuing the human prisoners inside. Each Mokari slaver carried hundreds of captured humans who would die if the ships were destroyed. Human boarding teams had to fight their way inside and secure the prisoners before the ships could be taken. Lieutenant Commander Song Hyun-woo led one of these boarding operations. His team fought through 3 decks of the Mokari ship while trying not to damage the prisoner compartments. They found over 800 humans who had been captured over the past 6 months, including entire families. The aliens had been treating the human prisoners worse than animals. They were kept in tiny cages without proper food or medical care. Many were sick or injured from the terrible conditions. Song Hyun-woo felt his anger growing as he saw what the aliens had done to his people, but human soldiers maintained their discipline even in the face of such cruelty. They used non-lethal weapons to disable the Mokari crew and secured medical help for the rescued prisoners. The goal was to save human lives, not to seek revenge through unnecessary killing. The first wave of attacks lasted 18 hours and struck targets in 17 different star systems. Every major alien military installation that had been involved in attacks against humans was either captured or destroyed. The aliens had no warning and no time to coordinate a response. The success of the first strike was total. Alien species that had considered themselves the dominant powers in the galaxy was suddenly helpless against human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. The military balance of power had shifted completely in a single day. Most shocking to the aliens was the restraint shown by human forces despite having overwhelming superiority. Humans did not massacre their enemies. They captured military facilities without harming civilians. They rescued prisoners without seeking revenge. They fought with honor even when their enemies had shown them none. The galaxy was beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Human mercy was not weakness, and human restraint was not inability. When humans finally decided to fight, they fought better than anyone else. The aliens had awakened something they could not control. News of the successful attacks spread through human space like wildfire. For the first time in 50 years, humans were not the victims, they were the victors. The species that had been pushing humanity around were suddenly afraid and running for their lives. The first strike was only the beginning. The aliens were about to learn that when humans finally stopped being patient, the galaxy would never be the same again. President Ojasu stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council on Centros Prime. Her speech was being broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence as she calmly read from a document that would change everything. The document was titled Crimes Against Humanity, and it listed every attack on human civilians over the past 50 years. Each entry included dates, locations, numbers of victims, and evidence the galaxy was about to learn. exactly what they had been doing to humanity while calling it acceptable. The Mokari Empire had enslaved 67,000 human children over the past 20 years. President O read from the document these children were separated from their families and forced to work in dangerous factories. Many died from exhaustion or industrial accidents. The youngest victim was only 6 years old. The alien delegates from the Mokari Empire tried to interrupt, but President O continued reading. The Vex Confederacy poisoned the water supplies of 3 human agricultural worlds, causing mass starvation among civilian populations. The death toll was estimated at 4.2 million people, including pregnant women and infants. Zephyrian Republic conducted biological weapons experiments on human prisoners. The test subjects were deliberately infected with diseases to study their effects on human physiology. Over 12,000 humans died in these experiments, including volunteers who had been told they were receiving medical treatment. The Keth Dominion used human prisoners as living shields during their military exercises. Captive humans were forced to stand in front of targets while Keth soldiers practiced their marksmanship. Over 3,000 humans were killed in these training sessions, which the Keth called combat realism drills. The list went on for 2 hours. Every species in the galaxy had committed some form of atrocity against humanity. Most had multiple entries. In the document, the evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The galaxy could no longer pretend that these attacks were isolated incidents or military accidents. President O finished reading and looked directly at the alien delegates. You have spent 50 years telling us that these attacks were justified. You said we were expanding too quickly into space. You said we should have asked permission before settling on empty worlds. You said we were naive about galactic politics. Now you will learn what humans are really capable of when we stop being diplomatic. President O continued. We have tried to solve our problems through negotiation and compromise for half a century. The time is over. From this moment forward, any attack on human civilians will result in immediate military retaliation. The Galactic Council chambers erupted in angry voices as alien delegates protested. They demanded that humanity return to peaceful negotiations. They insisted that the recent human attacks were illegal under galactic law. They threatened economic sanctions against human worlds. President O waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. You seem to have forgotten that you broke galactic law first. Every attack on our civilians was illegal. Every act of slavery was illegal. Every biological experiment was illegal. But you faced no punishment because the Council refused to enforce its own laws. Colonel Bei Jiangwu was leading the liberation of human prisoners from the notorious Keth detention facility on Proxima Keth. This was where the Keth Dominion sent humans who had been captured during their military operations. The facility was supposed to be a prisoner of war camp, but it was actually a torture center. The human rescue team found conditions that shocked even experienced soldiers. The Keth had not just imprisoned humans, they had tortured them. For entertainment, the guards had been running gambling operations where they bet on how long humans could survive various forms of abuse. The medical officer, Dr. Shin Haun, examined the rescued prisoners and found evidence of systematic torture. Humans had been subjected to electric shocks, chemical burns, and surgical procedures without anesthesia. The Keth had been studying human pain responses as part of their military research. One of the rescued prisoners was former Captain Jung Mijin, who had been captured when her diplomatic ship was attacked 2 years ago. She had been held in solitary confinement while the Keth tried to break her spirit through psychological torture. They failed because they underestimated human mental strength. Captain Jung was weak from malnutrition, but her voice was still strong when she spoke to Colonel Bei. They tried to make me betray human military secrets. She said they used every torture technique they knew, but I never broke. I knew that someday humanity would come for me. The evidence found at the Keth facility provided the moral justification for what came next. Human military forces escalated from precision strikes to total warfare. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans could do when they stopped holding back. Now they would get their wish. Admiral Kim Tae-yan authorized the deployment of weapons that had been banned by galactic treaties. The aliens protested, forgetting that they had already broken those same treaties countless times against human targets. The rules of civilized warfare no longer applied when dealing with species that had abandoned civilization. Quantum disruptor weapons developed by Dr. Song Haijin were deployed against alien fleets throughout the galaxy. These weapons could disable entire battleships without killing their crews. The aliens found their most powerful warships floating helplessly in space while human forces boarded them. General Han Suyao commanded the operation that became known as the Reckoning. Human forces struck simultaneously at the capitals of 12 different alien empires. These were not random attacks but surgical strikes designed to cripple each species' ability to wage war. The attack on the Velton homeworld lasted 6 hours. Human forces captured the planetary government and military command without harming civilian populations. The Velton leaders who had ordered the destruction of human colony ships were arrested and charged with war crimes. The Mokari Empire tried to use human slaves as hostages, threatening to kill them if human forces did not withdraw, but human intelligence had already located every slave facility, and Mokari space rescue teams freed the prisoners while military forces destroyed the slaving infrastructure. The Gernaki species attempted to flee to their hidden research stations where they had been conducting experiments on human test subjects, but human agents had been tracking these facilities for years. Every secret laboratory was located and destroyed within hours. The alien coalition that had spent decades oppressing humanity tried to unite against the human offensive. They discovered that their military cooperation was superficial compared to humanity's integrated command structure. Human forces moved with unity of purpose that the fractured alien alliance could not match. The turning point came at the Battle of Nexus 7, where humanity faced the combined fleets of 5 alien species. The aliens thought their numerical advantage would overwhelm the human forces. They were wrong about everything. Captain Park Yunwoo led his fighter squadron through the massive space battle. His pilots had been training for this moment their entire careers. They fought with a fury that alien pilots had never witnessed. Every human pilot carried the weight of 50 years of injustice. The battle lasted 18 hours and ended with complete human victory. The alien survivors reported that human pilots seemed to know their thoughts before they made them. Human tactics were unpredictable and devastating. The aliens could not understand how humans had become so dangerous so quickly. The truth was that humans had always been dangerous. The galaxy had only seen humanity fighting with restrictions and limitations. When those restrictions were removed, the aliens discovered that they had been fighting an enemy who had been holding back. Escalation phase lasted 3 weeks and completely changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Species that had been dominant for centuries were suddenly helpless against human forces that seemed to appear everywhere at once. The galaxy learned that human patience had limits and human mercy was conditional. When both were exhausted, the results were more terrible than anything the aliens had imagined. The species that had spent 50 years tormenting humanity were about to face the consequences of their actions. The war was entering its final phase, and the aliens were beginning to understand that they had made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had pushed humanity too far, and now there would be no going back to the old ways. General Han Suyang stood in the war room, deep inside the Luna Command Center. The massive holographic display showed the entire galaxy with red markers indicating ongoing military operations. Human forces were engaged in battles across 43 different star systems. The Great Reckoning had begun. Operation was the largest military campaign in galactic history, but it was not random destruction. Every target had been carefully selected to cripple alien military capabilities while minimizing harm to innocent civilians. Human commanders still maintained their moral standards even while conducting total war. The aliens had finally managed to coordinate a response to the human offensive. 12 different species had formed an emergency military alliance. They called themselves the Galactic Defense Coalition, and they commanded over 3,000 warships compared to only 800. Human vessels. On paper, the aliens had overwhelming numerical superiority, but numbers meant nothing when the enemy could not find you to fight. Human stealth technology had advanced far beyond anything the aliens possessed. Human ships could appear, strike, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Admiral Seo Mina commanded the operation at the Zephyrian core worlds, where the enemy alliance was trying to make their last stand. The aliens had concentrated their fleets around the heavily fortified system. Believing that human forces would never dare attack such a strong position, they were wrong about human capabilities once again. The quantum disruptor weapons could penetrate any known shield system, and the new human warships were faster than anything in the alien fleet. Admiral Seo had spent months planning this assault, and every detail had been prepared. The Battle of Zephyrian Core began when human ships materialized inside the enemy formation using dimensional jump technology that the aliens did not know existed. The alien commanders had no time to react before their ships were disabled by weapons that ignored their defensive systems. Captain Park Yeonwoo led the fighter attack that destroyed the main enemy command ship. His squadron moved through the alien fleet like ghosts, striking at critical systems and vanishing before the enemy could target them. The alien pilots could not understand how human fighters could be so fast and maneuverable. Secret was that human pilots had been trained using combat simulators based on real alien ship specifications. For years, human intelligence had been gathering data on every alien vessel. Now that information was being used to devastating effect in actual combat. Major General Kim Tae-yeon coordinated the ground assault on Mokari Prime, the homeworld of the species that had enslaved the most human children. The planet was defended by massive ground fortifications and an army of 2 million Mokari soldiers. The human assault force numbered only 50,000 troops, but they had equipment and training that the aliens could not match. Human soldiers could become invisible using personal stealth fields. They carried weapons that could penetrate any armor, and they moved with coordination that seemed impossible. The battle for the Mokari capital lasted 3 days. Human forces systematically dismantled the alien defenses while searching for the locations where human children were being held. The rescue of enslaved humans was the primary objective. Destroying the enemy military was secondary. Captain Yoon Dae-ho led one of the rescue teams that found a facility holding over 3,000 human children. The youngest was only 5 years old and had been taken from her family during an alien raid on a human transport. The children had been forced to work in weapons factories. The little girl named Minji looked up at Captain Yoon with eyes that had seen too much suffering. "Are you really human?" she asked. "I thought all the grown-ups were gone." Captain Yoon knelt down beside her and spoke gently. "We never stopped looking for you. Now we are taking you home." The liberation of the children provided additional motivation for human forces throughout the galaxy. Every soldier, every pilot, every officer was fighting not just for victory but for the innocent lives that had been destroyed by alien cruelty. Colonel Choi Seo-jun commanded the assault on the Keth research stations, where aliens had been conducting biological experiments on human prisoners. The stations were hidden in the outer regions of the Keth system, protected by automated defense platforms. The defense platforms were designed to stop conventional attacks, but human engineers had developed new weapons specifically for this mission. The gravity bombs could tear apart entire space stations, while the temporal mines could age metal structures to dust in seconds. The research stations fell within hours of the attack. Human rescue teams found laboratories filled with evidence of horrific experiments. Thousands of humans had been used as test subjects for biological weapons, chemical toxins, and surgical procedures. Dr. Shin Houn examined the research data and found records of experiments that violated every standard of medical ethics. The aliens had been deliberately infecting humans with diseases to study how they spread. They had tested chemical weapons by exposing human prisoners to toxic gases. The evidence was used to build legal cases against alien war criminals, but it also served another purpose. It showed the galaxy exactly what kind of species they had been supporting when they ignored attacks on humanity. The alien coalition realized that conventional warfare could not stop the human offensive. They began using desperate tactics, including the threat to destroy entire planets rather than let them fall to human forces. The galaxy watched in horror as the aliens revealed their true nature. The Gornaki species threatened to detonate nuclear weapons in their own cities rather than surrender to human forces. They calculated that the resulting radiation would kill any human occupation troops, but they underestimated human technology once again. Human engineers deployed atmospheric processors that could neutralize radiation in real time. The devices were originally developed for terraforming, but they could also clean up after alien weapons. The Gunaki nuclear threats became meaningless within hours. The Vex Confederacy tried a different approach. They began executing human prisoners whenever human forces advanced into their territory. They broadcast the executions across the galaxy, hoping to force humanity to stop the offensive. The broadcasts had the opposite effect. Human forces became even more determined to rescue the remaining prisoners. The execution sites became priority targets for immediate assault. Every alien involved in killing human prisoners was marked for capture and trial. The turning point of the total war phase came at the Battle of Centros Prime, where the Galactic Council was located. The alien coalition had gathered their remaining fleets to defend the political center of the galaxy. They believed that humans would not dare attack the neutral zone. President Ojasu addressed the galaxy one final time before the attack began. The Galactic Council has had 50 years to enforce justice and prevent war. Crimes against humanity, she said. You have failed in your duty and lost the right to govern galactic affairs. The human fleet that attacked Centros Prime was the largest force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 200 warships supported by thousands of fighters and support vessels. The aliens had never seen such a massive human military operation. The battle lasted only 6 hours because the alien fleets were so badly damaged from previous engagements. Most of their experienced commanders had been captured or killed. Their ships were running low on ammunition and fuel. Their coordination was breaking down under constant pressure. When the Galactic Council building was occupied by human forces, the symbolic victory was complete. The species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were now prisoners in their own capital. The old order was finished and humanity would decide what came next. The total war phase had lasted 8 weeks and completely destroyed the military power of every species that had attacked humanity. The aliens, who had spent 50 years tormenting human civilians, were now helpless and at the mercy of the people they had wronged. But humanity had learned the lessons of history. The victors in this war would not become the oppressors. Human forces maintained their discipline and their ethical standards. Even in complete victory, the galaxy would be rebuilt on principles of justice rather than revenge. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of human leadership was about to begin. The species that had pushed humanity too far were about to discover what kind of galactic civilization humans would create. Ambassador Jung Mijin stood at the podium in the reformed Galactic Council chambers. The same room where alien species had spent 50 years making excuses for attacks on humanity was now under human control. The surviving alien delegates sat in nervous silence, waiting to learn their fate. The woman speaking to them was the same Captain Jung who had been tortured in Keth detention facilities for 2 years. Her body still bore the scars of alien cruelty, but her voice was strong and clear. As she addressed the galaxy, the aliens had broken her body, but they had failed to break her spirit. The war is over, Ambassador Jung announced to the assembled delegates. Alien military forces throughout the galaxy have either surrendered or been destroyed. Your governments have been dissolved, and your war criminals are awaiting trial. The old galactic order no longer exists. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many of them had personally voted to ignore human suffering. Over the past decades now, they were facing the consequences of their decisions. The species that had seemed so powerful were reduced to begging for mercy. You are probably wondering what humanity will do with our victory, Ambassador Jung continued. Some of you expect us to become the same kind of oppressors that you were. You think we will enslave your people and destroy your worlds because that is what you would do in our position. The room was completely silent as every alien delegate waited to hear their fate. The humans had demonstrated military superiority beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Now they would learn whether humans would use that power for revenge or for something better. You are wrong about us, Ambassador Jung said. Human civilization is not based on domination and exploitation. We do not find pleasure in the suffering of others. We will not become the monsters that you were. The galaxy will be rebuilt on principles of justice and equality. The relief in the room was obvious, but Ambassador Jung was not finished speaking. There will be conditions for your continued existence as free species, she continued. The crimes against humanity will never be forgotten, and they will never be repeated. First, all human Prisoners and slaves throughout the galaxy will be immediately released and returned to human space, she announced. Any alien who interferes with these rescue operations will be treated as a war criminal. This includes every human child who was taken from their families. Second, all alien military forces will be reduced to planetary defense only, she continued. No alien species will be permitted to maintain offensive military capabilities. Your fleets will be dismantled, and your weapons will be destroyed. You have proven that you cannot be trusted with military power. Third, war crimes trials will be conducted for every alien who participated in attacks against human civilians, she said. The trials will be fair and public, but justice will be served. Those found guilty will face appropriate punishment for their crimes. Fourth, economic reparations will be paid to humanity for 50 years of damage and suffering, she announced. The cost of rebuilding destroyed human colonies and caring for trauma survivors will be shared among all species that participated in attacks against us. The alien delegates began to protest that these conditions were too harsh. They argued that their species would not survive without their military forces. They claimed that the reparations would destroy their economies. They begged for mercy and compromise. Ambassador Jung listened to their protests with the same patience that humanity had shown for 50 years of alien aggression. When they finished speaking, she responded with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. You had 50 years to show mercy to human civilians, she said. You chose to show none. Now you ask for the mercy that you denied to others. You will receive more compassion from us than you ever showed to humanity, but do not mistake our mercy for weakness. Commander Lee Jong-suk oversaw the establishment of human protectorates throughout former alien space. These were not occupations but protective zones, where humans ensured that the peace would be maintained. The aliens were free to govern themselves within the new legal framework. The protectorates were staffed by human peacekeepers who had experience in both military operations and civilian administration. Many of them were former prisoners who had been rescued during the war. They understood alien culture and could work with cooperative alien leaders. The transformation of galactic civilization took 5 years to complete. Human engineers helped rebuild alien worlds that had been damaged during the war. Human doctors provided medical care to alien civilians who had been injured. Human teachers established schools based on principles of equality and respect. The most important change was in how different species interacted with each other. The old system where stronger species could attack weaker ones was completely eliminated. The new galactic constitution included protections for civilian populations and severe penalties for war crimes. Captain Park Yen-woo became the administrator of the former Mokari slave markets. The facilities that had once sold human children were converted into schools and hospitals. The same buildings that had been used for evil now served to heal the damage that had been done. The little girl Minji, who had been rescued from the Mokari weapons factory, became a symbol of the new galaxy. She attended the first integrated school where human and alien children learned together. The same species that had once enslaved her children now played together in peace. Dr. Song Haijin directed the establishment of research centers where alien and human scientists worked together to develop technology for peaceful purposes. The weapons that had won the war were converted into tools for exploration and construction. The quantum disruptors that had disabled alien fleets were modified to clear asteroid fields for mining. The stealth technology that had made human ships invisible was used to build surveillance systems that prevented war crimes. The tools of war became instruments of peace. The galaxy learned that human leadership was different from alien domination. Humans did not rule through fear or oppression. They governed through law and justice. They used their power to protect the weak rather than exploit them. President Ojisu was elected as the first human chancellor of the reformed Galactic Council. Her administration included representatives from every species, but humans held the key positions that controlled military and legal affairs. The galaxy would never again be governed by those who ignored war crimes. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. The old system where alien species grew wealthy by exploiting human labor was replaced by fair trade agreements that benefited all parties. Human colonies that had been destroyed were rebuilt with assistance from the same species that had attacked them. The cultural changes were the most profound of all. The phrase Remember the snapping became common across alien societies? It referred to the moment when humanity patience finally ended and the galaxy learned.